Go ahead, please. What are your thoughts?
Well, I appear on various other podcasts sporadically or regularly. A couple, two or three fewer than I used to because of a bizarre intrusion into the subject matter of religious studies, biblical criticism, etc., which is ostensibly why I'm on these shows. But suddenly this cancel culture nightmare has descended, and people want nothing to do with me because I'm a conservative and a Republican, though not uncritical of either one. And I just do not conform to their shibboleths and so on. I've even been on one guy's a show where I was surprised to find out I was like ambushed by a kind of a self-criticism council, as if we were in communist China, trying to get me to stop watching Fox News and watch this other stuff instead. What the heck does this have to do with what we're discussing? And so I thought, well, maybe
that's the way sick people are. They take all together one spectrum of the reality and cancel it out. So that's how my wife is when we are discussing about the past. Really, I mean, that's why I like speaking with you, because you're conservative and Republican. Women are just, I mean, I love my wife. I'm not a woman hater, but that's the way they are.
Yeah, there are differences, and it's a part of this insidious wokeness to try to deny that there are these differences, which strikes me as utterly perverse.
I have a 16-year-old daughter. She's beautiful. And she asked me, Dad, I need something about equality. And I said, there's no such thing. There's equal value, but we're not the same. So I can't help you.
Equality and sameness are not the same thing. And you
can't even play with those words. I disagree on that also. We are all worth the same. We're invaluable human lives.
Yes, sameness.
You deserve my respect. Yeah,
there's an old Ursula Le Guin story called The Lathe of Heaven, in which this guy somehow can change reality at a whim. And so he is thought to be crazy, but his therapist realizes, no, this isn't a delusion. He can actually do this. So I'm going to start suggesting things to him that he could just miraculously change. And it's like the old story, The Monkey's Paw, where every wish backfires because you just don't see the possible repercussions. And so he says, I wish everybody were the same, and that we didn't have different colors so we could be bigoted against one another. I wish that would stop. Okay, but when everybody wakes up, they're all slate gray. And the color has bleached out of everybody. Well, that's what we're seeing today with the attempt to wash all differences away, oddly, by the same people that say they're so big on diversity. It's just incredible. You know, I really think it's great to have you speaking on it too, because you have a great voice, great resonance, and you speak well. I think that'd be great.
Thank you, Doctor.
And also, I had the idea for a name for this and a bit of a slant. I kind of like the idea of calling it the opiate of the people. Because what we're like, when Marx said that, he was being condescending yet compassionate toward those he thought did not understand as well as he did. Well, I have to admit that's a kind of Gnostic attitude that those of us who like the critical approach to religion also have, or should have, that you want to spread knowledge that most people will never otherwise hear. And I find if you can criticize something in the sense of a ruthless analysis of it.
I can't in real life, because my parents, they're in an agnostic group. They believe in all sorts of Christ figures. Like they mix them all together. Like they believe that we've had Christ and we've had Buddha, and that they're all the same thing, a Christ figure. And that many people don't understand it because it's a gnosis. It's a secret knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And they, my dad and my mom, they like to dress in white, and they go on vacations to when it's the, I think it's the solstice or equinox. I'm not sure, but they like to go to the pyramids over here in where we have pyramids,
Oh yeah.
and they like to take like energy. Well, that for me, it's not that I don't believe or not believe, but on my research, I know that that is BS, because the people that made the pyramids, they actually made the pyramids in couples, in twins. One was to mark the beginning of the culture, I'm sorry, the harvest season, and one was to tell them when the sun was in a different point where it was not time to harvest.
Hmm.
And in the middle was the exact middle, that's the equinox, equaling day and night.
Well, that's spooky enough for some people, and I don't mean that derisively. Some people will say, if that's all it meant, that's pretty profound, and look at the grasp these people had of nature and all that. But I feel like I don't buy it
No, but for
either
me,
on one
it's just
level.
ancient technology. It's just like it makes sense for me to have a clock, an iPhone or a smartwatch from 2,000 years ago. From 2,000 years ago, that was their technology. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
That was
So,
what humankind were able to produce at that time.
mm-hmm. And I always remind my students, if I have any, don't think the ancients were stupid. No,
Exactly.
we're still catching up with them on some things. Read Plato. I mean, he's long, long ago. Nobody's as smart as him now, and never has been since. It seems to me. And so I have great respect for all the creations of the human spirit, but I don't accept all of them with their mythical and sometimes superstitious baggage. But even there, you have to be compassionate because it's fascinating too. There's something to learn from that, even if we have gone beyond it, and sometimes we're behind them. So I want to take a critical but appreciative stance toward religion, and I also want to treat wokeism as a religious cult. Because that it has every feature of a religion:
It is.
date setting, apocalypticism, disfellowshipping and shunning unbelievers, and all sorts of things. I've heard many people say it's a modern religion. Yes, it is, and so it needs to receive the kind of critical attention the other ones do.
Before you start your elaboration, can I just say something? I
Yeah.
remember from a stand up comedian. He said I'm a liberal, but whenever we get hit with an apocalyptic, with a zombie apocalypse, I'll go become Republican. Because
Yeah.
because they don't accept foreigners, and also they like guns. So so that's the way I'm going to survive. Because here, if you're liberal, you just let everyone in. Come on, it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah, and you wind up reinforcing and abetting the very thing that's going to destroy you or your country or your culture or your values. And it's just amazing. And I call that political snake handling. Let the chips fall where they may. And if we get bitten with poison, that's the way it is. We're faithful to the dogma. That's insane, and it's like a cult. And the alarmism of the climate change thing, it's a religious cult in all but name. And I think it ought to be named and analyzed in the same way. You got to say the motives of many of these people are spotless, though they've been enslaved to an unprovable dogma. But then there are other nasty folks who are exploiting people. Like when you have people like Kerry and Obama and others who say, oh, yeah, climate change, we got to cut back on everything, but they don't. Oh, no, don't go on airplanes except for the private one I'm flying around on. To me, that shows, wait a minute, we're being had. These people could either they're schizophrenic or they're cynical, and I kind of think the latter. So I want to be able to point that out, and I think we can really be a kind of a lighthouse here taking that approach.
Exactly. We need people like you, doctor, people that think, because that's happening here. That happens everywhere. Here in Mexico, this president, what he likes to harp on, or um, to entice in people, is that the democratic values, and that they're the rich and the poor, and that the gap should be removed, that the poor also have to, or the unprotected, they also need to have better opportunities, and you know what I'm saying. And it turns out that when the other regime, the PRI, the former president, when he finished his period in chair in office, he used to live in this residence. It was the official residence of the Mexican presidents, and this place is called Los Pinos. A pino is a pine tree. So they used to live in Los Pinos, and what he did, this president, to show the people that must not happen, to have a president living in a residence. What did he do? He turned that house into a public museum.
Huh.
But wait a moment. What did he do instead? He started living in the original Palacio Nacional, the National Palace, right in downtown.
Oh God. The emperor's new clothes all over again.
Yeah.
So,
So I get it
yeah,
perfect.
I hate to say anything, but that suit is pretty transparent. Don't think it's kidding anybody. Boy.
That's right. And I also believe the internet, the algorithm. The algorithm, what happens is that it comports the way you want it to. Like if you're a Republican and you're finding something on the web that's going to suit your ideology, that's what it's going to feed you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's like also a bubble. That's dangerous for everyone, because if, like, let's say if I want to look for the Psalms, but not the Christian version in the Christian Bible, but the Psalms, so I have a nightmare, because all I get is all these Christian versions of the Psalms, and I want to find the original ones, and I have a hard time finding them.
As they say, not much demand for it, so they're not keeping it in stock.
No, not in stock. Meaning, if you want to, you can go find the PDF available for free for the Psalms. But they're going to be with comments, that in this part he's speaking about Christ or Jesus, and in this part it's also a prophecy about Christ, or this is also like a resemblance of what Christ was going to do, stuff like
Mm.
that. And we know that doesn't have anything to do at this point. David was not a prophet. The Psalms were something that he did to have them. There were songs to be performed at the temple, and they were between him and the creator. It's something about the man, King David, and his creator. That's what I know about Psalms today, about the original Jewish Psalms, and you can find that online. The not those Psalms, but I mean, if you would want to find them the way I'm explaining it to you, you would. They're not here, but I believe that it's because there's like this curtain, like this electronic curtain, that prevents people in this side of the continent, here in Mexico, for us to have that information. Let's say any ordinary good Christian that wants to study his religion, heaven forbid that he might find a Jewish psalm. He needs to find the good
Yeah.
version.
And that's why those things have been reinterpreted in Christian terms. It's like newspeak in 1984. The only way you can accept this is to sort of rewrite it the way you wish it had been and say that was the real meaning that we can now see. And like that's how the Song of Solomon got into the Bible at all. It was originally a collection of ritual hymns or something about the death and resurrection of the god Tammuz by his wife and sister Ishtar. And the woman in the Song of Solomon is called the Shulamite. It's not even a name. Well,
Tsunamita, right? The Tsunamite. The
yeah.
Tsunamite.
Well, what is it? I think Elijah ministered woman who was the
No, the
Elijah,
other one,
the son
the
of.
you mean the disciple of Prophet Elias? Yeah,
Mhm.
they were two very similar names.
Yeah.
And first, it was the prophet that didn't die, and a this like Back to the Future vehicle came and picked him up,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah.
then he left his Superman coat for his disciple so he can take his place. You keep
Mhm.
saving the world for me while I come back.
And if you count them up, the second one does exactly twice the number of miracles the first one did. And so something's going on there. I'm
Well, that's
not.
because
Well,
that's what he asked him to do. He said, if
yes, a
you stay
double
with me,
portion.
you'll get a double portion of
Yeah.
my power.
Mm.
So they
Yeah,
had to
that's
fit that
so
in.
fascinating. Yeah,
But it's
I
beautiful.
guess.
Actually, I like it. But that doesn't that's not incongruent with the prophets. I believe it's not incongruent. But what it's incongruent is that the Jewish people, they would never speak in public against another Jew, even today.
Hmm.
I follow lots of Jewish speakers. They sometimes say, I'm concerned that this very famous speaker, his name is so and so, and he is from a Jewish mother, so he must know this what I'm going to say. But they're not being pejorative or offensive against their fellow Jew. They're very respectful.
Hmm.
So I don't get it why Jesus was portrayed being so, with his words, he was very harsh against his fellow Jews.
Hmm.
That doesn't comport the way a Jew or a prophet would comport.
Hmm. Well, though you do have like Elijah really blistering King Ahab and Queen Jezebel.
but
Uh,
he's not saying you're going to go to hell.
yeah, they didn't even have that in mind back at that time. Yeah, it's funny.
He's
I
not
think
he's not condemning him or saying you're a son of Baal or you're this, and if you would have known better, you would have known me. No,
mm,
that's not the language of a prophet, the one that Jesus uses. But the way that the prophets were with their nation, they were telling them the truth, but they were just saying, if if you want to go ahead and follow Baal, go ahead. But if you want to go follow our God, uh, make up your mind. You can't
mhm,
be on two places at once.
mm,
But there, he was not being derogative. And the words of Paul here says, I'm much better than Peter. I just called up on him, and that's very incongruent with the writings of the other prophets. You would never, that the Daniel and Isaiah and Jeremiah, they all knew each other. They would never, like, man, they would never, like, say, I don't get the prophecy from Jeremiah because he said it was going to be only 70 years exile, and right now I'm here worried, praying to God because Jeremiah had it wrong. No.
he just says if there was a now we know the real meaning. He meant 70 weeks of years and all that. So that's a way of actually affirming it rather than saying, "Gee, this guy really missed the boat." It's a way of sort of redeeming it, and
So I'm
that.
not saying that either one, that they don't have their, like, we can not believe in it, like that it literally happened, but it's not the same glossary, lexicon, vocabulary. It's totally different. That's what actually made me stop believing verbatim in what Peter said or Jesus said or whatever Paul said, because that's not just what like culturally, like if you were uh let's say you were very familiar with the Chinese culture, and then you have these writings from, let's say, certain guy that lived in a village far away, like in Kung Fu Panda Land, right? And you were going, wow, like this is really awesome. He's coming here to liberate the Chinese. But wait a moment, if that doesn't comport with your fellow Chinese, like not your fellow Chinese, but with the community where you're familiar, you're gonna say, wait, but this doesn't feel Chinese, right?
Yeah, that's the common dynamic of revitalization movements. If a new influence comes in from conquerors or missionaries or whatever, and it catches on real big, the people that want to go with the old time religion, understandably, they get really threatened, and they may, like the Judah Maccabee and his family, they said, "Hey, look, we're not giving up Judaism to worship Antiochus Epiphanes. I'm sorry, and if we have to fight to stay able to observe our traditions, I'm afraid that's what we're going to have to do."
I'm happy you mentioned the Maccabee family because how did they only lasted 100 years, and even though they did something awesome, why were they destroyed completely? Because they didn't want to let go of the kingdom. They weren't kings. They were a
Yeah, that's
priest
right.
family. So it makes a lot of sense when you read their stories.
Mm,
However, in Christianity, Christ is everything.
mm,
He's the Savior. He's the Lord. He's the bishop. He's the prophet. He's the healer. He's the teacher. He's everything you want, man. And that's what's not like. It doesn't. It's a good idea. I don't think it's not, but it doesn't sound Jewish. Totally two different ways of seeing the world. So
mm.
that's why, like, once I heard someone say that it was a brilliant move that the church attached together their Bible with the Jewish Bible. So when a Christian would open up the Bible, they would conflate both of them and believe that it's the same message when it's not.
Hmm. Yeah, Marcion, who said, no, let's not go with the Old Testament because it doesn't teach anything about Jesus. And he didn't think it was the Satanic Bible or something. He just said, we don't have the right to appropriate their scripture and pretend it's talking about our thing. Come on, let's be honest. And so people thought, oh, anti Semitic. No, he wasn't. He was just saying, let's give credit and take only the credit we deserve. And I think that's pretty good. But he always
That's very honest. That's very decent.
mm. There were some predecessors that, like I think. I can't think of it offhand. Theodore of Mopsuestia. He was so-called Orthodox in the 2nd century, I think. But he said the same thing. Come on now, this is not prophesying Jesus. And even today in fundamentalism, surprisingly, dispensationalism, though it's kind of weird in some ways, they say, look, Christ, yeah, there were prophecies about the Messiah and all that stuff, but still, the whole idea of salvation by grace and the church of Jews and Gentiles together, this was unanticipated. This was shocker, as Ephesians says. This was the mystery hidden for ages and generations. So dispensationalists say, yeah, that's right, and God stopped the clock on the holy history of Israel, but it's going to start over again. And when Jesus comes back, he'll reign over Israel from Jerusalem again. But that's not what Christianity is about. They have a really interesting balancing act going on there. And now some Christians, some fundamentalists, to my pleasant amazement, have said, look, there is a double covenant. Maybe Jews don't really need to believe in Jesus, because some Jews say, well, we don't, but boy, it sure is great that Christianity brought you pagans into monotheism. That's a big improvement. Well, some Christians are kind of taking it that way too. Maybe there is this separate track of salvation for Jews, so let's stop harassing them. Ann Coulter said that. And she's a conservative evangelical Presbyterian. But I thought, what do you know? The ice caps are melting here.
In the grand scheme of things, there in America or in the United States, because there's more interaction with different ways of cultures, and the way people have more access to information, and English is so widely spoken that you can get access to more things that are said. If you have English, that's a great advantage. But here, since we only have Spanish, so we're more controlled. But I remember when I was a little kid, I grew up. I'm from a Catholic family, And it's interesting. I'm going to let you know, Bob, that I just called you Bob.
Please do.
Okay, thank you. So I remember that when I had to do my, it's called your communion, your first
Yeah.
communion, whatever. I really never believed in it. I just said, well, it's part of what, I don't know. My parents really, I can't say anything about them because they're my parents. But parents are really also really, instead of using the word ignorant, I don't like it, but let's just say it. We are so separate from what they really believe that we just go by what we have to do according to the church's tradition. Since nobody told me what the first communion was for, basically what they do is they ask you to confess your sins to a priest. But I didn't feel comfortable, like saying like what am I going to say? I'm only like 12 or whatever. What I do remember is that before you get your first communion, they give you a little like course. It's called a catechism.
Yeah, right. Catechism. Yeah.
Catholicism, I believe that's what it's called. And they don't speak anything about Christ or about anything. I remember they just speak about the church's tradition,
Hmm.
that there are three, it's a Trinity, and that like really not related stuff, like because this is like something that it's what this church is, and this is what you need to know, and that's what you're going to get into with this first communion, right?
Hmm.
Or at least that's the way how I understood it. But I really didn't understand it the way I know it is right now. The first communion I understand today is when you have your first approach with your first encounter with Jesus, because it's the first time you're going to eat
Hmm. The Eucharistic wafer.
exactly that thing, the wafer with a little bit of wine, because they literally they do give children wine.
Hmm.
I did remember having wine. That was my first time I had wine. It's interesting because I never really felt nothing against it, but also it didn't seem to have to be any to do anything with my life. Like, why do I need to meet Jesus? Like, like, and really that was my thought when I was a young kid growing up. So in reality, I didn't know anything about what the Bible. That's my thought right now. What I'm trying to say is that nothing to do what the Bible says, what the the Gospels say in Spanish, the Evangelios.
Yeah.
That's why they call it the evangelists,
Hmm.
Evangelios, the Gospels. Nothing to do with anything. It's just what the tradition of the Catholic Church. Nothing to do with the New Testament or anything. So I was very not aware also about what it says. So many people here, they don't really, they're not really worried. I mean, you can go like right here to my neighbor, and he sells these statues of the Holy Death. Okay, some people believe in death. Most, like for example, if they are doing something against the law, like if they are, like, let's say, I don't want to say this, but that's what they do it for. They believe that if they have the statue of the death and they put flowers there, that death is going to protect them when they go and fight against other criminal groups, when they are fighting for whatever they fight.
Yeah.
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 So,
I,
but if I go to that guy right now, my neighbor, he's a nice guy. If I go and ask him, "Do you believe in God?" The only one. He's, yeah, of course I do, man. What's the problem?
huh, I hear another theologian in the background.
Yeah, that's Carlo. He's the one that's he's my producer.
Yeah, I can tell he's an intelligent lad.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he's really intelligent. He really knows something. He uses words that I never taught him. For example, I said either you want to use the TV for videos or the phone, not both, because you get tired of the TV and then you come to the phone and you want to relax on bed with the phone. He said, "Dad, that's called a limitation."
It
He's
reminds
he's only 8.
It's amazing. Yeah. Once I was with a friend and his son who couldn't have been, I guess he must have been the same age, really. And his dad and I were railing on about some philosophical thing, and I said, well, this viewpoint is what I hold, but I admit that the other view is cogent as well, and this and that and the other thing. Suddenly, from the back seat, this little kid says, Bob, you can't make everything true.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Caramba. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I guess just to underline, I would like to use the title of the program as the opiate of the people, because that's got to perk up some ears, and so that's the only thing I got to say. We have gotten into the kind of goodies I hoped we would. So this sounds great. I'm proud to have it out there.
Who was the first thinker? I heard this before. Who was the
I
first
think
person?
Karl Marx said it.
But what do you think of Marx? Do you think it's something good to have anything to do with Marx at this point?
Well, the irony of our saying that using that phrase, though we're sympathetic to religion yet critical of it, because that's kind of what Marx was saying. He didn't say this damn religion, we got to stamp it out. He said that religion is the opiate of the people to bring them comfort in a suffering world. And he said, of course, what we really need is radical surgery and a new social and economic system. But he didn't think religion was the devil or something.
He believed, like, he was a really smart guy. So when he used the word opioid, I don't think for a minute that he used that word in a light way. I think that he really meant it. And
Yeah.
what does opioid does? It takes away the pain. What else, doctor?
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
addictive.
And that's true of religion. But
Exactly.
So I want to say that, yeah, we
I want to
understand.
connect the dots between opioid and what religion gives to the people.
Yeah, and yet that doesn't mean it's true. And so that I think is a unique perspective, and especially also saying, isn't it ironic that the woke thing is based on a kind of Marxism, and yet it has become a fundamentalist religion of another kind? So I'd like to kind of juggle those elements.
Great.
And,
how did we come to this point of having so much this like wokeness thing? What happened, doctor?
Well, I think miseducation of the young, and then of college students and all that. So they came to dominate college, and everybody was sort of catechized into this neo-Marxist critical theory that I think was post-World War II, where they said, well, if you want to get the West to become communist or socialist, it's not going to work with the class struggle because they don't have it like we did. They have a thriving middle class. So we're going to have to set them against one another on another basis. How about race? And so it's obvious they're ginning up race hatred where it had been long dead. And it does create like this crazy thing in California, where they're going to give millions of bucks to African American Californians as reparations for slavery, though they never had slavery in California. But even if they had, this clearly the point of this is to sow the seeds of anti-black racism. I mean, it's a great recruiting thing for the Ku Klux Klan, it seems to me. And what a mistake.
California never had black slavery. They, at some level, all of the black community in America are descendants of these first people that were brought by force to work in the cotton fields. So it's I don't think that's something necessarily bad. However, when politics get involved and they use money for their political agenda,
especially since they don't have it, they're going to be paying these people millions in monopoly money. There's the inflation. They're already billions of dollars in the hole, and yet they're coming up with another excuse to print up some phony money and pretend they've done the people they're giving it to a favor. I don't think so. That ain't going to work very well.
also why they don't want to give away the colonization ideology because they do understand they need us. They need Mexico. They need Africa. We have lots of resources, even Haiti. That there's this very weird material that came from outer space. It's a meteorite that landed in Haiti, and then you can get a very special kind of material that's very expensive. They like to have an unsettled country that makes it easy for other countries to come, and of course they're not stealing because they have to pay for whatever they have to pay. The people are suffering from hunger and from persecution. They don't have the opportunity to give their word about what's going on in their country.
Mm. And there's still colonialism of the same kind in China because they have slave labor to produce all the fancy sneakers and all that, and they have kids doing dangerous
But do
mining.
you think that's true? Have you been to China, doctor?
No, never. I've been to
Because I have
England.
a friend who just went to China some time ago, and he said that's not true.
The child slave labor a
That's
bit.
not true. No, that's not true. That's something that used to happen, of course, but China's not the same.
I really wonder about that. I mean, they've shown.
Because he this dude, man, he doesn't even speak Chinese, but he's a genius. You know, he's Mexican, and he's one of these guys that can fix anything. He was invited by this other friend of his because they wanted to buy Chinese machinery, and I really got the opportunity to ask him because his son and my daughter were that's in sixth grade, and we were speaking about China, and he said, yeah, it's a great place because there are lots of not exactly his words, but he said there's so much wealth, but also there's so much security. You can't get away with stealing anything because they would just kill you because it's a death sentence.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one way of maintaining order, but at what price? But you don't want to go to the opposite end of the spectrum like we're doing in our cities now, where anything goes.
I mean, I'm just saying this to you because that's what I know, but I also believe that whatever country or land we live in, like that's the way it is, and like I can't justify what's happening here, but this is like my land, and I can't really. I don't feel like the dignity. I wouldn't feel worthy of living here if I would speak like what's happening in America, in the United States, where people get everything, like literally, like water, electricity, paved roads, everything. I mean everything, and you still have something to fight about. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, yeah, boy. And because of the fighting, we may soon not have that stuff.
And here, I mean, I don't have absolutely everything as I would want to, but I have what I need, and I need to be grateful for it, right? Because this is the country that's like I believe that maybe I'm not a very true religious believer or anything, but I do believe in some sort of being grateful for what you have. So
Mhm.
if this is the country where I'm making a living and where my children were born, I mean, I need to have some sort of good opinion about it.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, it's a kind of self-hatred, subtle, isn't it?
Exactly. Like I need to like I really don't like a lot of things that go around here, but who am I? I mean, this is just my country, the way it is. And I
Mhm.
know we're awesome people or we're terrible people, but this is where I was designated to be. And like it's good to talk about what we don't like with our other, when we're going to vote or do something about a change, but just all the time be like, always having these discussions that we need to do something, but just speaking and making noise, that's not going to solve anything. You need to come up with a clear solution of what we want, how you're going to do it, when, what resources do you need to do it.
Mhm.
That would be something more like it would make more sense for me to listen to all those like people that are debating or that people that are speaking so much in the internet. But right now we're in a time or in an epoch where we can all say something. However, I think we need to take responsibility. Like, am I willing to do what I am actually saying? Like we say in Mexico, you need to have the balls. Like you need to measure your words because it's going to come to a point where somehow we're going to see you where you're going to be tested. That's the way. That's the word where it comes from. Testicles tested to see if what you say is what you mean.
Hmm. Put your money where your mouth is.
Right, right.
That's why I say, like Kerry and all these guys, supposedly horrified by the prospect of climate change. So we got to be very strict, except for me and my private jet, which takes me to climate change conferences where I can mouth off and look good. It's somebody's just doing a lot of pot
Or the
smoke.
people that like to speak a lot about, or that don't like people that were in problems of addictions or drug addictions and prostitution and using heroin and being alcoholics. But would you be willing to hire them so they can change?
Hmm.
But would you be willing to share your time and money and tell them how life really works so they can live differently? Because it's not just money; it's also uh, helping them understand the reality of the world. That it's not just about not. I'm saying no to drugs. It's because you need to know what your purpose in life is, find it, and then you won't have time to get stoned or to get high because you'll be too busy performing your life.
Right. Oh, yeah. Something else you said relevant to this was you didn't choose the circumstances into which you were born. But what is the point of griping about it? It's like the old proverb why in the Bible, why do you kick against the ox goads? Well, what's the point? You didn't choose it, but you can choose it now, in the sense of saying, well, all right, I will accept this and make of it what I can. It's like better to
And
light a
that's
than
what
curse the
God in
God.
the Bible. That's what God in the Bible hated about its people. Moses took them out of slavery from Egypt. From it's called in Hebrew Mitzrayim, so the rabbis teach, and people were complaining. Man, I mean, I'm taking you out of hell, and you're complaining. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, we missed the leeks and onions. Is what?
What?
What do you? What does
I
it
mean,
take to satisfy you?
like, what's that, man? Like, what's we don't like you don't understand. I mean, you equal an onion as equal as your liberty. Come on. It's basically what God is telling us. I mean, like learn how to evaluate or assess what's really valuable, dude.
Uh-huh. Uh,
When I
that's
take you,
good.
you can buy millions of onions when we're done here with this desert thing, right?
Uh, Bravo.
That's awesome.
I'm proud to have this as the maiden voyage.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. I really can't express myself the way I would really like to in terms of how I admire you, your work. And thank you for putting up with Carlo also. He's
Oh,
just
no
here
problem.
being a nuisance.
Oh no, not where I stand.
And we will be remotely working together on this new
Yeah,
adventure.
great. Yeah, it took a while, but I'm glad we're doing it.
Thank you, Doctor. Dile al
Okay.
doctor. Goodbye, Doctor.
Bye, doctor.
Con tu
Uh-huh.
varita.
Adios.
Adiós, adiós.
Adiós, adiós.